Hi, welcome to the Arreoblue Podcast, talking about all things data. I'm actually joined this time by one of my fellow co-founders, someone who I've worked with for probably 7 years, actually. Worked with him prior to founding Arreoblue together. Suranga Fernando, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yes, hello. I'm Suranga Fernando. I lead architecture and advisory at Arreoblue. And as Steve mentioned, we've worked together for a good 7 years now in data and AI through our time at Microsoft and into founding Arreoblue. Pleased to be here.
Brilliant. And I thought, a little bit different today. People often ask me, certainly, what is it like? What's it been like coming from a corporate? So we thought perhaps probably just talk a little bit about our journey to date, but maybe start off with that as a question. What has it been like and some of the obvious changes?
Um, it's been a wild, wild ride, as well. You know, Steve. With four co-founders, we've got four different identities and different and often different values and different experiences. I think it's been so much fun learning with you guys in a field that we've all got different experiences from. Uh, the journey's been incredible. Aria Blue are doing really, really well. Individually, I think we're all doing really, really well. Let's hope it continues. And I'm learning a lot every day. I mean, in prepping for this, I was thinking, what are we going to talk about? And I think I work hard. I still work hard. I'm learning every day. And I think that the one thing that's changed for me is that change from being an individual contributor to now it being much more about the people that we've got in our organization. And the focus on that's really key.
Yeah, definitely. I think
What
that's
about
what.
you?
Yeah, so I mean, similarly, right? So, something that I always wanted to do, and doing it with you guys as founders has been amazing. Like you say, we bring different strengths and viewpoints. Um, the I probably could do a better job of looking back. I think so sometimes some of the things we have achieved, I like consistently look forwards at what are we going to do next. Maybe spend a little bit more time because actually some of the things we have accomplished have been pretty incredible. Like for example, just this week, right? We got notification of our Microsoft specialism for analytics.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about that in the scale of things, there are maybe 60 partners out there that have that within the UK. Most of those are global partners. So we kind of, in our sort of data consultancy boutique, fit into about five, maybe six, which are sort of fit into that category. The support from both Microsoft and Databricks has been phenomenal. Probably, you know, sometimes I don't do this well enough, but probably deserved, right? When we think about some of the things that we've been able to achieve and drive, and the employees thing is super interesting, right? Like remote first work culture. How do we get the feedback? I think all of our employees kind of appreciate like the agility and the mode we're in. Probably um, trying new things all the time, which actually I think we were talking in the podcast. We started this about a year ago, having a go, had a lot of fun doing it. So thought, well, let's continue this. And actually, our guests are all now really excited to kind of join and be on it. So yeah, it's been fantastic.
It really has. And I think, I guess over the last 2 years, I've really kind of figured out. I look back now at the managers I've had and the leaders I've had as an employee, and I definitely at those times took for granted, what it takes to run a team or a company. Because as an employee, you kind of think, oh, I wish they would do that better, or I wish they would do that better. And now it's us in the hot seat. The imposter syndrome is oppressive sometimes. Are we doing the right things by our employees? Are we talking to them enough? Is there enough time in the day to talk to them and get that feedback? Um, it's it can be a lot, but also on the flip side, being part of a small growing organization, as long as we're kind of talking to each other and getting that feedback, I think it's going so well.
Yeah, definitely. I think we tried different things as well, haven't we? And some of those things like have really kind of worked with the engagement. There is one of those, the imposter syndrome. You're right. That is such a strong sort of feeling. But the other part perhaps is the time. I think that's one of the things we're all kind of hyper aware of, right? Like you want to have more time, spend more time with the employees. But we are lucky, right, that we have a bunch of really experienced, really solid people that kind of also, I guess, help drive us, right?
Yeah, and look, in prepping for this, I thought, gosh, I could go and talk about us. I can talk about our employees, and I know that if I don't mention the support our families have given us, my goodness, the startup journey's taken a bit of a toll on the family in some senses. Working at home and the remote thing helps a lot actually, because at least I'm at home a lot more than I was. Um, but it takes the support of your family, the support of your employees, and the support of the leadership team, support of customers. Actually, that's been
Mhm.
incredible because I think quite a lot of our customers, they know where we came from, they know our journey, and they're kind of bought into and wanting us to succeed as well as we're working with them. So it's just been a really positive story.
Yeah, it's a really good call out. I mean, all of the directors, right? We all have families with kids. Some of us quite a few kids. Certainly managing some of that time, and I guess the techniques that we've perhaps used to make sure, certainly from my side, right, trying to remain focused on the family when I'm with the family is one of those really key things, which is difficult, right, in that remote first world because you're essentially always working in the house.
Yeah,
It can be hard to flip from one thing to the other. But
I suppose, and we talk about this a lot, but just good to get your view actually on one thing. So, as a CEO now, how do you decide what you learn?
so, I mean, that's a really, really good question. I think I generally like to go reasonably broad brush. So there's a few things that I will be looking at and thinking about, and I have different. So for example, if I have a short little bit of time, I will love to jump into Harvard Business Review. I know you guys always laugh about it because I always bring it up, but short articles that are really topical. I think then I've gone through waves, right? So there was some stuff that I did to brush up on some of the sort of data management, data architecture components. Right now, I'm actually reading up quite a lot on professional services organizations. It feels like we're kind of hitting a scale part where, we're going to need to refine some of our processes. So, understanding some of the metrics that a typical professional services organization would measure and whether we want to adopt those or, as always, do our own thing and cut our own way, which we've done pretty successfully. Um, Also, a key part is like touching base with other contacts, right? And trying to work out where they might have invested some of their time learning some of the things that we don't know about. Actually, I don't know if you do this, but one of the things I tend to do is try and get a good idea and self awareness of where the gaps are. And then I might just park some of those things. So, for example, there are probably some things that are on the radar that I could know better financially, but I don't need to know them just yet. But I am aware that that gap exists, and at a certain point, I'll focus some time on picking that up.
No, exactly. That resonates a lot actually. So there's so much to go at from a startup business entrepreneur, but we work in technology. We work with some huge organizations. Um, Understanding where they are in terms of their maturity journey with data, whether it's AI, and being able to help guide that. You've got to spend a lot of time learning that. People management, leadership, all of these things have to be balanced, and it's tricky.
Yeah, I there is a piece as well, right? I guess we're lucky with some of the technology. If you need to quickly get up to speed on something, ChatGPT and some of those components, right, have made that world much more accessible. I still enjoy reading a good book, right? But yeah,
No, you're absolutely right. I think actually that's it's going to change quite drastically the world of consultancy. If you've got an enterprising engineer working and they go on to ChatGPT and ask questions about how they can do something, the answers you get back are actually really quite good now. You can, especially if you learn how to use ChatGPT and you can ask it some more tailored questions, you can get some very, very good guidance, which often organizations have to pay consultancies a lot of money to kind of help them. But one thing I would say is AI and LLMs, what they don't have is the experience. So it's obviously built on lots, but I guess what we're finding is how does a consultancy take some of the good process, which is easily obtainable now, and actually make that real for an organization, often with organizational inertia, cultures inside that organization that even though they've got the right answer in front of them from ChatGPT, it's still hard to make happen. And I think that's where companies like ours can differentiate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you remember, like, the time before we'd even set up the company when we were thinking about names and Ario, obviously, like meaning the word driving, and it's that that willingness to get stuck in, right? That's part of our DNA, and how can we accelerate things forwards? I guess the other part as well. I'm interested to get your view on this. The feedback from clients on how um, we don't come with like a preconceived picture of how their business is doing stuff. We really embed, understand what's going on, and then like that working with partnership. Someone quoted the other day, one of the clients said, "What's really nice is, you know, you guys will often come along. You'll give us some help. You'll actually help the team on the ground understand some of the challenges, and then there'll be a presentation and." The presentation might be completely run by the team. We might be there supporting, but they know that we've been there in the background, upskilling and supporting the people on that journey. Um, yeah, which I really like that approach, and it seems to work really well with our clients.
Exactly that. I think if you think about we are a partner. You have to behave like a partner, and if when we are talking to customers, if we've got all that in our mind all the time, we sometimes blur the lines a little bit between how we're behaving in terms of we want to be seen as part of their team quite often. So that in order to do that, you kind of need to change your mindset and almost say we're here to get to an outcome and support, not necessarily to cookie cutter our way into shaping their business how we can operate, because that's how so almost being able to shape our deliverables is, again, it's one of our strengths, but that relies on good people and good values and us making sure that we constantly invest in our people.
Yeah, definitely. I guess maybe changing tack a little bit. When we were in Microsoft, that's where some of the observations on how some of the consultancies that we really liked working with, how they would approach things. And I guess just mixing some of the views that you had then with some of the things that we've gone through, like just talking to how well do you think we've kind of done on that journey, some of the values that you think are coming through um, very loudly in how we approach stuff.
I think, unfortunately, it's one of those things that the journey's never over. It's not something that we can relax and say we've done this now. Let's just let it run. It's a constant tweaking journey to make sure every engagement that we've got with the customer, that our values are being driven through our people onto the ground as they're coming across different situations. The actual and actually thinking about the leadership team, the journey for us of learning. So in our own different areas, figuring out how do you know how good we are, how well we are doing in a thing that we've had to learn over the last 2 years because we're running a business. Seeking that external help. I think I've talked about this in with another podcast I was doing. Understanding that you've got gaps yourself is sometimes quite hard because either we're doing really, really well. Have we got the time to listen to people? We've got to force our way into that, kind of hear it, and it's finding those people that resonate with you as well.
But there's we've seen it, right? I think we look at ourselves sometimes as in because we can obviously peer into the machine, like, oh, this feels like quite a lot of gaps, and then when we speak to others, they're like, oh no, actually, you've nailed some of those process bits.
Yeah, I think we do over-index. Unfortunately, there's an element of this which when you kind of think I'm a self-confessed workaholic to an extent, so I can over-index on things and get to a point where I've learned what I need to, and then a bit more. I haven't practiced it, but then when you get to practice it and you show someone what you've done, they go, "Wow, why are you doing that? You're only 2 years old as an org." And we go, oh, "Is this not how everyone does it?" And they go, "No, not yet." And then we adjust. So yes, there's definitely a lot of that, but equally, there's probably a bunch of stuff that we're not doing. So it's just finding that.
Yeah. I guess one thing I should ask as well is how have you found picking up all of the finance stuff? I'm not sure we're ever going to take that off you.
uh, no, I think again, it's one of those. It's definitely one of those things. As a leader in business, you have to know a grounding in it. It's really interesting. I will call out my nephew. My nephew is doing an A level in business, and he was talking to me the other day saying, "I've been learning about ratios and learning about the financial position of a company." And I'm not joking. I said, what do you mean by financial position of a company? I feel like that's something I should know about." And it turns out he was talking about balance sheets. I said, "Oh, let's have a conversation." So I was having a conversation with a 17-year-old who has been learning about balance sheets as an A level, and it was just a really interesting conversation. He was saying, "Oh, this ratio means this, and yours should be within X and Y." And we did the maths, and ours was slap bang in the middle, which was great. Um, but uh, you can learn from a 17-year-old. There you go.
Um, I guess there's one of the evolutions. I think you touched on it a little bit, but one of the things that we know we're going to have to do as well, right, is as a group of directors, there's a balance that we're all still doing where we're on projects, so working in the business versus working on client side.
Mhm.
I guess let's just share the views, I guess, on how you kind of see that evolving and some of those components.
Yeah, it's a really tough one, Steve, actually, because on one side, so my background is in architecture. My background is often with hands-on technology, but as we scale and grow as a company, that's naturally going to have to become less and less. Uh, for me, some of that imposter syndrome comes in because actually those are the things I'm good at, and I now need to move into areas where I'm not as practiced, so I can't rely on those skills. So that's going to be a challenge for me. I would throw that right back at you too, right? Because from a sales background, you have had an incredibly successful career, and now you're moving into a leadership role where we're gonna have to trust other people to do some of that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly I've always got loads of fun out of meeting with the clients and being on that external side and understanding some of the challenges they're going and converting that into how we can help. But then likewise, certainly there is that component of coaching and watching someone else go through it that you get a lot of joy in it and out of. However, that imposter syndrome bit again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you am I able to do that as well as obviously I could do the IC part. So yeah, definitely something. I guess one of the things for us will be how do we make sure we keep enough time to do that properly because time is
Yeah, again, I think when I was doing a bit of research on this kind of thing, we've got to be careful that we don't blame the lack of time. It's about prioritization, isn't it?
yeah.
That's the thing. There's plenty of time. It's just what you do with it, and that's our challenge. Me and Steve, we often we talk about victim mindset quite a lot, don't we?
Yeah.
And growth mindset. Um, and the idea, obviously, there are the situations in this world where you are not in control. We are very fortunate to have the ability to prioritize our own time. So I often battle with myself to go when I'm feeling down in the dumps about there's too much work. Actually, that's a great thing, and we have the chance to prioritize it. And we've also got a leadership team and staff now that can help us do that if we talk to them. I think that was the little quote that came into my head was, as a leader, my door's always open. It's just I'm never in my office to for anyone to wander by, and we've got to be quite careful about that.
Yeah.
Because as we're busy with client work and leading, if we haven't connected with our staff, then how can they live the values that we want the company to live? And that's I think one of our challenges going forward.
So we've talked a little bit about leadership. We talked a little bit about how the business is doing. We've talked a little bit about how to manage the balance of time with our families. The other question that I get asked a lot is what making the leap from a corporate to a startup. People often talk about the fear factor and things like that, and some of the reasons why. How did we overcome that? I don't know if you have any views on.
I I think quite a lot of the time the answer is really similar for me, which is I overanalyzed it.
Yeah.
I prepped a lot, over prepped. What we found out on day one, week two, month two was not quite what we had prepped for, but the fact that we had prepped gave me confidence. Does that make sense? So, I mean, I remember a conversation. It was not long after we joined Microsoft about what do you want to do, and both of us independently had talked about starting our own businesses. So we'd already thought about it back then. So I think the mental leap had already been made for me. I think now it's just, do we have the skills and the people around us to be able to meet any challenge? So economic downturns, another COVID lockdown, things like that are likely to hit us at some point
Mm.
over the course of this business. And are we resilient enough to make the right decisions and stick with the values that we've built? And that's, I think we are.
Yeah. 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 I certainly think when we go through some of the risk management stuff, right, there is a whole chunk of stuff that we've kind of thought through and strategized. Obviously, there'll be things that won't always be the case. I guess certainly from my side, uh, like breaking it, like you basically talked there about breaking the problem down, right? So like I know I kind of obsess about this where I have the sales background, but having a target, breaking that down into the amount of opportunities that are needed, amount of leads that are needed, and then being able to drive at that, I think that is one of the things that has kept me sane, like knowing that actually if I keep repeating these activities, the outcome at the end should roughly look like X, Y, Z, and
Yeah.
having a plan to go against.
No, and I think that's a really incredible. There's something behind that, Steve, because what you're talking about is reverting to type, and that type being a successful model for you to get to and achieve an outcome. I'm not going to finish without getting a plug in for architecture, because I think like my background in architecture is a very balanced. It's actually pretty structured how you should approach a problem. There are things you should do. There are pillars you can't ignore. Um, and if ignore them at your peril, sort of thing. So from an enterprise architecture perspective, you've got to think about business process, you've got to think about technology, you've got to think about data and how you're leveraging it, you've got to think about all these things. And often, you know with my blinkered architecture hat on, you can look at things where things have gone wrong and you go, oh well, that's actually because you didn't consider these parts, and there is a pillar for that you just didn't consider. um, so there's my plug for architecture. So I think that brings our company into kind of focus as we think about how we help our customers, and is it a rounded view we're giving, and are we consulting and saying, look, we could just run at that, but if you're ignoring these, then these are the pitfalls that you might face.
Yeah, but that second part that you said there, right? That's one of the key elements that we bring, right? Is that thinking about the broader picture beyond the use case that someone might be laser focused on, giving them that something where the I was going to say a platform, but it's not really a platform place because it's actually also how they set up their organization to be able to handle some of these data problems, but how they set up essentially in a way where they have that flexibility to be able to maneuver in the future. I mean, the amount of technology changes that have happened over the last 2 years as well. So that's kind of all driven out of architecture, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the other part is every customer we have worked with is at a different stage of their journey. So some customers want to use AI and they want to use it now, and they can. You know what I mean? They are. There's a short space of time where they can get some value out of AI. Other organizations, they want to use AI, but the foundations aren't there. It's going to take a long while to get the foundations, and actually, just moving from maturity level 0 to maturity level 1 is going to take months before they can start leveraging some of the more modern technologies. But I guess every customer is on a different pace of change and a different journey. And it's not really, we've got to be careful not to kind of try and imprint, you've got to be here. And if you're not here, then you're not succeeding. Because actually, what we found is that's absolutely not true with our customers.
We've got our data capability maturity framework, right? And we'll talk about exactly that when we assess people on it. We'll be like, it's okay to have reds. You just need to be aware of
Yeah.
where they are, right? And make it like data monetization is one we always talk about. It's not right for everyone, but you should know where it is. You
Yeah.
should know how to access it in case in the future it does become relevant. Um, yeah. key sort of ways, I guess, that we work, and even on the engineering side as well. So, I know one of the things that we talk consistently there is think about things in a world where, yes, we can create stuff that will accelerate people, but not things that people can't understand and build on and therefore take ownership of when they want to. So I don't know if there's any bits there that you want to talk to.
I think most of our customers, in fact, pretty much all of them, unless you can think of a discrepancy, they don't want us to come in, do it for them, and then either carry on doing it for them, or it's not finished. Even if we complete a piece of work, it's a system that's got to live on, and all of our customers would generally much rather it's an internal capability. And so part of that is building relationships, not just at the senior level, but with the people who are going to look after it, support it, build it, enhance it. And I think for professional services organizations, that's often a little bit scary, because it means that at the end of that project, we have to wave bye-bye to the customer. And actually that can lead to probably some quite defensive behaviors for professional services companies. And I think, counteracting that with actually, no, we are trying to help you to be self-sufficient. I think it's been a really, really powerful kind of value for us to work with.
Yeah, and that, you know what? Just recently, of course, we have seen it where we've had engagements and then we've rolled to different areas of the organization and components like that, because we have done exactly what kind of says on the tin. But we've also seen parts as well where there's smaller organizations where there's been the pause, but again, they've come back to us, right, when the next wave comes, and it's having that confidence. Well, I think we're running out of time. So great to have you on the show. And I don't know if you have any closing thoughts.
No, I think it's going to be an incredibly exciting next 12 months. I think who knows how fast we're going to have to grow, what challenges we're going to have to be faced with. But I think we're prepped for all of those challenges.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even then, we always show good agility, right, to be able to deal with what is in front of us. So yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
Cheers, Suranga.